No comments.
Well written as always.
Hearing none, yeah, well done, Bethany. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved, Willoughby.
Second Curry?
Roll call, please, Bethany?
Commissioner Curry,
Aye.
Commissioner Krillenberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Willoughby,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chairman Cashman.
Aye. Our next order of business are findings and recommendations. We have one tonight. It's for case A-13-2023 for 5700 to 5717 Foxgate Lane. Exterior appearance site plan review to allow for installation of entrance gate across Foxgate Lane in Foxgate subdivision in the R5 multiple family residential district. Do the commissioners have any requested revisions or additions to the findings of fact and recommendations?
No comments.
Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve them as submitted?
Krillenberger, so motions.
Do we have a second?
Moore, seconds.
Roll call, please, Bethany?
Commissioner Curry,
Aye.
Commissioner Krillenberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Willoughby,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chairman Cashman.
Aye. Next, we have public meetings. We have two tonight. The first is case A-9-2023 for 11 Salt Creek Lane. Med Properties, exterior appearance and site plan review to allow for changes to the existing building elevation, landscape plan, site plan at 11 Salt Creek Lane in the O3 General Office District. And this we continued from which meeting?
This
Couple
went,
ago.
March 23rd.
March?
There was one I was at. March 8th.
this went to the March 8th meeting.
Okay, excellent. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. My name is Dave Disturm with Jensen and Halstead Architects. Were all of you here for the previous?
I was not.
Okay, so if you want additional information, please ask,
Okay, thank you.
and be happy to answer any questions. So a little bit different order than what we had originally for ours. So on the first go around with this, we were replacing the windows and doing a little bit with some portico shares in there, but not terribly much. We were asked to go back and take a look, and the committee's thought was it was a little bit incongruous between what the new windows were compared to the rest of the building. So went back, we've done a couple of rounds with staff, and I believe Mr. Cashman, you've seen some of those, so it shouldn't be a big shock for some of you. And basically, the changes we've got one request from the last meeting on the trash enclosure. We were doing kind of a one-for-one replacement with cedar fencing. The request was that we use a composite product that we're using to screen the transformer. So that change has been made in your packet. And then at the front portico entry area, the front stoop has been narrowed up a little bit, so we've actually got a little more green space, a little more landscaping at that front entryway. And as we go down here, Bethany, were the renderings in this package somewhere?
Yep, keep
Yes.
scrolling.
Yeah,
Okay.
further back.
Yeah.
All right.
And I appreciate you going through the multiple iterations through the process.
Okay. Well, happy to help out, make sure everything is good for you all. And let's pull this up here so everybody can see. So again, the one change was for this area here, and again, the stoop came down just a little bit. And again, just using the composite decking, similar to what's going around the transformer versus there. And couple of things we were asked to look at were the canopies that were at 901 over here around the corner and across the street at 8 Salt Creek. So we took some of those elements, incorporated them in, as well as the light fixture, getting something that's a little more cleaner, a little more contemporary. The trims around the doors, taking those, cleaning those up, making them a little bit match on what the existing limestone caps were. Finding a little bit nicer door, a little more contemporary looking on that, and again, using the same type of trim. So this is the east entry door, which is off the parking lot side, new sliding door, and then the entrance doors at east, north, and west, going with these guys here. And then, let me blow this up a little bit. For the east entrance, which is the opposite side for the parking lot, doing a canopy very similar to 901, except for black, doing it white so it matches out the trim here with the back tiebacks. As well as the north and south employee entrances to the building, doing a smaller version of that canopy there. And then at the front canopy, this program's a little sensitive. Tying back something like, was it 8 Salt Creek, this wall structurally couldn't take it, so we've got a couple of nice posts out here, doing more of a sunshade, again, with a nice acrylic roof on there. On this building, we didn't think that doing the rounded on 8 would work well. Doing a more squared off would give it a much nicer look and be more with the style of the existing building. And then again, civil and landscape, the only changes were on that front stoop, making it a little bit smaller, a little more landscaping. And I think landscaping was very well received last time, so.
It was. Great.
Anybody have any questions?
Cynthia, thank you, appreciate it.
No, I recall that one of the things we wanted to do was make sure it blended well with the other buildings. And going from the colonial, it's a bit more modern still than I thought it might be.
Okay.
I understand what you've done, and I appreciate you going back, but it still reads, to me, more of a modern building.
Okay, I thought that was kind of the direction we were given, so.
I mean, that's where, when we talked before, we felt like it had one leg and being more modern and one, like, with the porticos and stuff remaining.
It was
So
the two.
traditional, and the windows were more modern, matching the newer building across the street, so, you know,
Okay.
this is their.
My
solution.
misunderstanding, I thought we were
Yeah.
trying to go to something, I know we didn't want the colonial, you didn't want that architectural details.
Well, they'd already,
but-
purchased all the windows, correct?
Right,
Correct.
Yeah, so that
right.
was
So
kind
it
of,
was trying to find.
might have influenced the hand a little.
Yeah.
There, okay,
Yes.
that was my only
Yeah.
question.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, very internally consistent, the porticos and the entries and consistency with the windows looks great. I have no comments, and
Thank
I still like the landscaping.
Yes, we got one of the best guys in the business for
Yes.
that, so.
Yes, he did a great presentation last time. Julie?
I think it looks great. Sometimes simpler is better, but I think it's a much better fit with the windows. So you don't have to buy a new window.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Mark?
Overall, I like it. One question I had, so you said that's the horizontal portion of the canopy, that's acrylic, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that solid in color, or does that have any
No,
transparency?
it'll be a nice translucent. It won't
Okay.
be clear, it'll probably have a slight tint to it,
Okay.
but it's a product we've used on several different buildings. It comes out really nice.
Okay, and doesn't require a lot of maintenance or
No.
anything? Okay. All right. No, overall, I like it. I like the landscaping, and I actually like a little bit more of the modern. I know a couple of times we've looked at different offices that my real estate people wouldn't even take us to look at some of these buildings because people weren't interested in the non-modern look of these buildings. So I think making it more modern makes it more attractive.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
Scott?
the only question I have is where the old porticos are, because we now are, you've changed it and it looks great, by the way, but will you power wash the buildings? Because it's gonna leave
Yeah.
marks from where the
Yeah,
existing
for
is,
sure.
and how are you gonna clean that up and take
You
care
know,
of that?
when those come off, we'll have to work with the contractor. It's either gonna be a power wash or an acid wash, something to get that off. And hopefully, it'll be just a little bit of a caulk line on the edge. Initially, you might see a little bit, because it's been covered up, but it'll age back pretty quickly. Where the brick was covered, obviously it doesn't have the years of aging, but it'll
Right.
age in.
just a question on the windows, not that it matters, just for my own. Do they open or are they fixed?
No, they're fixed.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
with the mechanical systems we put in these buildings now,
Yeah.
you don't want those operable.
I understand. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
That's it.
Yeah, I appreciate the change. I think even in context with the McLaren, that in a year or so will be on the corner, which is a very contemporary design. The newer Edwards building across the street that's more contemporary. And then this, I think it's kind of bringing this 1960s subdivision into maybe a more current age. The one across the street's kind of a hybrid where Hinsdale Surgical Center is. It's got some modern elements and then some of the older, but I think this is going to really refresh the look of the building, and I like the look, and I appreciate the time and expense you guys did to go back and to do this, and the building owner. I knew as an architect you'd figure it out, but it looks good. I think it's a nice solution.
All right,
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve case?
Sorry.
Motion to approve case A-9-2023 for 11 Salt Creek Lane, Med Properties for exterior appearance and site plan review for the changes to exterior elevation, site plan, landscape plan, site plan in the O3 General Business District as submitted.
Motion to approve Curry?
Second, Willoughby?
A roll call, please. Vote, please, Bethany.
Commissioner Curry,
Aye.
Commissioner Krillenberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Willoughby,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chairman Cashman.
Aye. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, our next public meeting is case A-07, 2023 for 830 North Madison Street, Salt Creek Club, exterior appearance and site plan review to allow for the installation of 2 paddle tennis courts on top of existing sports courts and the construction of a patio at 830 North Madison Street in the OS Open Space District.
Trying to find the site plan for you on this. There we go. Good evening, Peter Koulis from Donatelli and Koulis on behalf of Salt Creek Club. It's up, as you stated this evening, for both site plan and exterior appearance. The site plan was actually approved unanimously back in 2008 when the first paddle tennis courts went in, and next to it was built the sport courts. So basically right now what is being asked for is to not add any impervious sources except a small little concrete area about 75 feet by about 15 feet for a patio out there, and to have these actually 2 new courts built on top of the sports court. Right now the sports court utilizes about 16 people. These courts will utilize about 8 people. So they're not adding any more concrete, not changing the topography, not changing the route of the property, not changing the site plan that was already approved a long time ago. But it has to come back because these are new construction of a change from a sport court for part of it to actual 2 paddle tennis courts. So the lights actually on it, with the things that were presented, bring it down from the lights from this piece of 2 new additions to 0 to 0.1, well below the zoning standards at the actual outside of the property lines. It is in fact almost 600 feet from the houses that are to the south of it. It's almost 2 football fields. If there's any complaints they had, originally it might have been from the existing ones that were there, and at one time they came in and asked to have lights on the tennis courts. Those were turned down. But this is where there's already lit up. This is further from the houses. This is directly in line. This is not changing. You're not having an offset at all. This is 2 courts next to 2 courts. That's the only thing that's being added on the property. And it's not a new model, it's not a new type. It's a professional hired to build it. It's well utilized, we all know. Everyone's playing paddle, everybody's, that's the idea behind the club. We want kids and adults to have something to be able to do. The sport court was just not being utilized well enough versus just a few people going out there playing basketball here or there. It's a better use for the property. There's not going to be any request or desire to have any more. This doesn't allow any more people to join the club. It still has a wait list. It's a well-utilized club. And that is why there's no variances being requested. There's no change at all to any property line. in 2008, we had to go through everything. We had to go through the metrics of what is happening with the topography, what are we doing with the wetlands, we needed to do Page County to sign off. Rob will tell you, we went round and around back in 2008 to get everything straightened out and all approved, and when it got to the board, it was approved unanimously. I know there's one neighbor who wrote a letter we got a copy of today. It's really not even relevant and germane to what we're here for tonight. We've already talked to Bethany, she's gonna bring people from the village out, we have nothing to hide. I visited the property yesterday, I did not see these things that are being raised. Well, first of all, there's no snow out there, so I don't know if they blocked a actual fire hydrant or not, and it's 40 feet off the road, but, you know, the village's been invited, Bethany's bringing people out, that will all be addressed to see if there are any legitimate concerns that are outside what we're here for tonight before we actually go to the board. So I don't really like to answer questions on things that I don't believe have any germane relevancy to what's going on. So basically, that is what is all that's happening. It's a sport court that was approved, being converted. That's it. All in line, not offset at all, lower wattage on these actual new light poles, and zero candle lights, because it's further from everybody's house that exists there now. So that's basically why we have to come here, though, because it is a change.
Correct. Okay.
So
Any
here
thanks?
to answer any questions. Al Stradle's here from Salt Creek Club. We got Bob Crane here from Salt Creek Club. And if anyone has any questions, we have nothing to hide. That's all we're trying to do.
Okay, we'll see if commissioners have any questions, and then we'll see if there's any public here want to comment.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah,
Scott?
I've got to be honest with you, I don't have any questions. I know what you guys are trying to do. I understand it. I get that you're existing on you're placing this on the existing footprint. So yeah, I don't really have any questions at this point, Steve.
Thanks, Scott. Mark?
Yeah, just a couple questions. So sports court, what is that currently used for and how much is that used?
It's more for kids to play kickball and basketball, and they kept the basketball next to it.
Okay,
So in another section, the sport court was just, it's all concrete. When I call it a sport court, it's not like a spongy sport court.
Okay.
It's a true concrete type thing, and this is gonna be right on top of it.
okay. And then my next question was for paddle tennis right now, I noticed it talked about going till 10:30.
It does now.
It does now?
And we've never in the 15 years had any citations for staying on past its hours.
And has the village, any reports from the village perspective? Not that we're aware of. Okay,
There's been no
Talking about
citations.
after-hours noise?
yeah.
Not, well, lights. There's no.
Well, lights are
Because the lights
noise.
turn off automatically.
Right, lights turn off automatically.
There
but-
is, with nothing to hide behind it, when we were here before, there was 2 functions that weren't paddle related.
Yeah,
That one was a pool party,
yeah.
that
I
someone had utilized the club, that was
Okay,
a whole different issue.
okay, yeah,
Not-
I recall.
Nothing
Yeah,
from
exactly.
any of the tennis or paddle or anything like that.
All right, I'll listen to some
Okay,
other questions.
thanks, Mark. Julie?
Could you talk about the shields that are going on the lights?
They are fully shielded, and that's why the candle shows 0 to 0.1. It's a lower, it's 150 versus they were 200 before to make it work. As we all know, as we keep going newer lights, it's easier to make the candle go out less outwards because the LEDs are so much better than they used to be.
Now, will the other paddle courts, do those have shields, the lights?
Yes. Yes,
So everything will be fully
yes,
shields on
Yes.
all the same?
Yes.
Okay. And then the lighting, everything's on a timer, so people can't?
locked closet.
Okay, nobody can go in, turn it on, turn it off?
Only staff could ever go in there. No actual member, I asked that specific question, so Julie, thank you, it's a great question. No member has the ability, including the president, to have a key to that room.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Jim?
So the courts look great. Can you elaborate? And it's similar to the question that Mark had. So the new paver patio, 75 feet by something else, is that for entertaining in any way?
No,
Is that-
for people to stand, it will be before they go onto the courts. So they're not into the grass. It's a little bit of a ridge there and
Oh,
a
okay.
sweep. So it's a place for people to put their stuff down and people to go into there.
Okay,
It's not
so-
gonna be utilized, there's gonna be a bench there. It's not gonna be like a party area at all.
Okay.
This is the location right
Well, that's what I thought.
So
I
the
couldn't
court's
quite
gonna be-
put the whole thing together, but
there.
that's
That's where the
great.
patio's going.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie. That's a good question.
I've been there a lot.
Thanks, Jim. So, yeah.
everyone's asked my questions, I think, and I think it's gonna be beautiful, and you're utilizing the space as your membership wants it. I thought the patio had a gas grill or something, wasn't?
A
isn't there-
gas
There's a
fireplace, yeah.
There's a fire pit, so it's
Yes,
not
it-
just standing, it is a seated,
Yes, to keep people warm before they go play, because they often play in
Right.
the winter.
but it's a kind of gathering spot.
Correct.
And I think it looks really nice. And my other was just a question about the lighting, and you don't have any intention on changing the other lighting, because I know this is 150 watts versus 200 in the
Not at
others,
this
but there's
present
not
time.
necessary to change that.
No.
And you've never had complaints about
One
that?
neighbor has complained who's in the back corner on the south end of the property, saying he could see lights coming through the building and the structure. But most of the vegetation back by him is all on the property of Salt Creek Club, not on his own actual property. There was a problem at one point. He actually, the person who owned it also raised that issue in 2008, and at that point, they had taken down a lot of their vegetation there and around the corner. So, yes, there's been one person who's ever, in the 15 years, who's made a complaint about the lights.
No, I have no problem with this.
Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you. I did want Rob to just, we received a letter from Jeffrey Allen at 915 North Madison. And I wanted to ask Rob to respond to some of these complaints he had. There was nothing specifically about these, this paddle court, but it was regarding other things on the property.
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack there, and given the late hour that we received it, we've not had time to do any sort of deep dive into them, but certainly we'll address each one of those, take a field trip, look and see if we've got any, history of prior complaints out there,
Okay.
and address each of them.
And I saw that Kathleen, the village manager, that she responded to.
She responded as well,
Okay.
and we actually talked to the complainant this
'Cause
afternoon.
I think this came in like 4-ish or so today. Okay.
And I think staff, they did share it with us, and
Okay.
that's when Bethany said they're gonna have the village come out before we actually go to the board.
Because we do, these concerns, we want to make sure these are rectified. If there are things that don't comply with the property maintenance, that I'm sure the village will
Fully agree.
get addresses. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? With that, I'd like to see if there's any community members that want to speak to this matter. And if so, if you could please tell us your name. Hi there, welcome. Yes, up to, so it can be on TV and record. Are we on TV or are we just streaming now? I know there was some change recently.
I think we are streaming for sure. I think we're in transition.
Okay.
So hopefully we are also on TV.
Okay, hopefully.
Welcome.
Well, my name is Maria Shakir. I live in 543 Bonnie Bray Road. And I was here before you more than 10 years ago. I think specifically, as you mentioned, was 2008. It was the night before the first day of school at Monroe. And my son was anxious. And on top of that, we couldn't sleep because the noise and the lights. Since then, we've been talking about it with neighbors. And with my frustration, I asked my neighbor, what can I do? She said, call the police. We cannot constantly call the police, especially in wintertime. So I did a documentation on my phone. But before that, looking at that with my husband, we kind of went through the review of the criteria and the questions for the application. And I found some concerns that validated what I feel as a resident, not just a member that probably don't live in Hinsdale and come late at night. In number 4, they state that there's no negative traffic patterns. The height of the lights. That's something that we've been battling because right now it does imply a problem. From the proportion of the front, it states that the course will now be visible, but you don't talk about the noise. The noise with the increase of membership is louder. We've been there since 2001. So I don't know how many members you had in 2001. Right now in your letter, you said you have like 350 or so. So it's obvious that the noise will increase. Also with the game of paddle tennis and pickleball, with the noise of the equipment. I searched it up, and if you just search up like pickleball noise and neighbors, I didn't find a single article where people recommend to buy a house near a pickleball court. The other thing, it says number 5, the proposed site plan with 2 new paddle courts and viewing paver patio will create any traffic congestion or hazards in the public streets. On Memorial Day this year, my daughter and I went for a walk. As we turned north on Madison, half of the cars aligned on the sidewalk, they were parked there. So my daughter and I were walking next to each other. We have to walk in a single line. I have 2 new families in Bonnie Bray with babies, and I just thought about them. If they had a double stroller, or if it was me maybe 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and if I had a double stroller, I will have to go on the street with incoming cars in both ways. So it is a problem. So in the last number 12, it says, the site plan does not adversely affect the public health and safety. And for me, it does, because our sleep should not be compromised by the club's negligence with the lights and noise. And to prove that, I have the pleasure to meet you tonight. The Salt Creek sent you a letter, Mrs. Bethany Selman, on March 6th. And here you state, the club states that the paddle court lighting on a club timer that automatically turns off all lights at 10:45. I can tell you that's not really true. And the club members are required to exit the courts no later than 10:30. So my own report that I did on my phone, I documented the following. The first entry was on August 28, 2019. The lights were on all night. That's 2019. My husband took a few photos. This is October 12th, 2020. We can clearly see the lights. Then it was November 2nd at 5:14. We can see the lights. And we go on November at 7 in the morning. The lights are here. Also November 23rd and December 2020. He has more photos, but we just brought a sample. So the lights really is a huge problem. And the noise is now becoming noisier, because if the weather is nice, like right now, it's a nice evening, or in wintertime, you said the vegetation covers the lights, but in wintertime, all the leaves are gone. So we have a straight view of the members playing until 11 p.m., 10:30 p.m., and the lights go on. The gates are open all the time, so they can come in and out as they please, and there's no respect for our community. There's no respect for us as neighbors. So another thing that we did with my husband, searching for pickleball, Brook Park here in Hinsdale just installed 2 pickleball courts. We drove there 8:30 p.m., 9:30 p.m., quiet, no lights. We drove around the parks in town, Burnsville, Pierce Park, very quiet and peaceful. I also called the Hinsdale Racket Club, that is a tennis club, and they are an indoor facility. Their summer hours or regular hours, either 9:30 or 9 p.m. So why us have to deal with 10:30, 11 p.m.? There's no a timer, or your timer doesn't work. And I just feel so frustrated, because why businesses comply with the hours, with the time, and respect the residents? Why the club members don't appreciate the beauty of the nature they are surrounded by and respect the neighbors? And the height of the lights, it's another problem. They want to make the lights higher. And so what is your vision? Like, I was just thinking 5, 10, or 20 years from now. Is your membership going to double, triple? How are you going to handle the noise? It's just frustrating. And at this point, this morning, I called the police department to see if there was a noise ordinance. And he said no. And they said, what can I do? And he goes, well, you have to file a complaint. And then I'm like, is there any tickets, any like reaction to my complaint? And he goes, well, you'll have to go before the judge, and the judge will decide how to deal with it. So I'm thinking, if I have to get up from my bed at 11 p.m., drive to the police station, file a complaint, and it's going to be over and over and over, and keep going to the judge, it just doesn't make any sense. And either I have my windows open to have a nice evening, or I shut them because the noise is getting too loud, and the lights too. So I just respectfully ask you to do something about it, because this is our homes. These are our safe haven. This is where we live. And I'm not opposed what you do, how you remodel and do everything on the sports, it's fine. But it really is affecting my life, my husband's. You know, he has to go to work, and it's really affecting our health. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to see if there's any more comments. Yes, sir.
My name is Calvin Shakir, they call me Cal, I'm sorry. And
Pardon me,
my
can you
wife is
repeat
Marie.
that?
I'm sorry, Cal, K-A-L, Shakir, S-H-A-K-R, I live in 543 Piney Beret Road, Hinsdale.
Welcome, thank you.
Okay, we did have a meeting with the club about before COVID, and we discussed the 24 and 16. They have right now 16 feet height, not a 24 feet height. He's hiding it. The club right now have 16. They want to make it 24 to do match, and invite another member to play in them course. It's not about kids playing and have fun. No, it's bringing people. One thing they have to know is to start up with them. They never close, and I have a witness on that, the chief of police of Hinsdale. I really appreciate his service. I did talk to him about incident with them, about them, and he told me, yeah, I called them, and they told me they never close. They leave the door open. Any member is really wish, he can come inside. And he assured me he's gonna let him close the gate by the door, and never happened. They start the hours, you live in Hinsdale. What anybody start? 8 o'clock to get the glasses, right? They start at 7. They're blowing, and I have it on the video. Anybody want to watch it? I can show it to him. I'm not just bluffing. I have it on video. 7 o'clock with the blower blowing all over the place, and they want us to sleep at 11 o'clock. Not even 8 hours to sleep, for God's sake. Is this common? Is that fair for any one of you? If it's fair, I'll just sit down right now and quiet. The second thing's the noise. He's saying never complain. Nobody complain about them. What about 4th of July? Every holiday, any Memorial Day, the noise in summer is unbearable. I call the police department, he can get it from the Freedom of Information. I call them every night about them. The noise, 12, 1 o'clock sometimes. And they say, you know what they say? I'm sorry, the member, we cannot tell them anything. They blow up in the hand. And I call the police department, and they told me, we send the police officer 3 times. We're gonna arrest somebody maybe. And that's what exactly we're dealing with. They're supposed to close at 10 o'clock. And by the way, in 1958, when they applied for the city, they're supposed to close Sunday. They never close Sunday. They have 80% of the property, over 80%, almost 60 to 80%. I talked to an architect today, show him the drawing. He told me, where is the drainage? Where is the sewage? How would the city approve it? Where's the pond? Anybody, I can show you in the drawing, sorry. I can show you in the drawing. Where's the pond? Where's the water they hold it? I know 2008, when I came, I moved with my kids. I just say, you know what a big deal. They told me, I want to talk to them. And I said, we're gonna just put the house, gonna look nice to everybody. We're just gonna take care of the neighbor, improvement. I said, okay, what's wrong? It's okay. And guess what happened after that? Oh my God, it's a disaster. And about a parking lot. You know how many members they have? They have it in them paper and it's submitted to the city. 350 members. Guess how much they have parking? 70 members, 70 parking lot. What about the employee? Where they're gonna park? In our street? Every event, and I have picture for it, I can dig it for you. Every event, they park in our streets. The only thing left for them, only our driveway. We call the police. They come and they say, you know what, until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, wherever the city allowed. That's not fair. I don't have, in Madison, they don't even have a courage to go to park at Oak Brook, because they're right to Oak Brook. They park in Hinsdale. And because the street is 2-way, so they cannot park in 2-way, so they park on the curbs. Is this was supposed the curbs to be parking lot for them? And by the way, they say in the drawing, it's 2 feet away, they're 20 foot, I think, from the setback, because it's right there, it's a wetland. Why we have to live with this one? The Chase, I hear them, the president, One time he have talking about it in Chase, they have the light, and he told them 9 o'clock they have to shut the light. Why they have to 10:30? Why have to leave at 10:30? Why have they have to close at 10:30? They never close 10:30, and they say 11:45, 10:45. I'm sorry. Why? If the city approve it and it's a mistake, we could correct it or no? And if you're talking about, and I'm like my wife, she said, I want to repeat myself, we went all over. Nobody opened until 9 o'clock. And the 24-foot, I told them, lower the ground and make your height 24, because the light is it's right straight to my bedroom. And they say, no, it's going to cost too much. Guess what? Don't do the project if it costs you too much. And the second thing, every city almost, they recommend for the pickleball, they recommend a sound fence, soundproof fence. Where is it in the map? Where is it in the drawing? They know it's too loud. They don't even. I want to ask you a question. You ever see somebody push the water toward the neighbor? That's what the club does. You can take any specter from your city and see it by yourself. You know what we complain about it? They do it like a trench and direct it to the pond. They don't have no sewage. They can. I don't think so. The gentleman can tell me where's the sewage. Where's the sewage? Where's the pond? If the city approves it, it's wrong. With all respect to everybody. And let me just show you about the fire pit. If the city put it in the property, the city responsible, that's right. If I put it in my house, he tried to hide it. If I put it in my house, I'm gonna be responsible. At their business, who's gonna be responsible? Are they willing to sign for it personally gonna do with the city every 5 years or 2 years? Because if it's catch on fire, who's gonna be responsible? It's the middle of the woodland. Right there, the wood. It's not a joke. He tried to say, well, are we going to just replace the area? No, you're not replacing the area. You're putting a patio and a grass. You're covering more grass. Where's the water going to go, for God's sake? Coming to my property. I know that. I have a flood. closer to the, I have a work right now, and I took off from my work, and that's not fair. And if it's catching fire, I'm gonna hold the city liable for it, because I came to a meeting and it was on record right now. I told you it's gonna catch on fire. With the way, and with all respect to him, he's a very nice gentleman, I met with him before, but his members, not even zero. I can name him one. They fanny reward and everything, and guess what? The kids, they're gonna put teenagers, they're gonna throw a can of beer in the fire pit. What's gonna happen? It's gonna explode. You can Google it and you can YouTube it, and there's a bunch of incidents about it. But they're gonna hold federal away? No, they're gonna run out of business. I know that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I wish if they can close the business for real.
Steve, I do.
Close the door and seal it. Thank
Can
you.
we request that the blowing doesn't begin until, without having to, again, have to call?
It's not a
for them?
planning
need
commission
to do that.
item.
That's the
I mean,
law.
that's, happens in my neighborhood. you know.
It's the law, but I mean, can we ask Salt Creek to
I mean, I think
make sure that doesn't begin before 8 o'clock?
we certainly, we can ask.
Without having to,
Yeah.
everybody have to call?
Yes.
Can we get that on record, that you will make sure
I'll tell the
that?
guys at 8 o'clock, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've had years past with the lawnmowers, we stopped all that, we start doing it past 8 o'clock now.
And the switches, can you do something with your membership to make sure that, or is there a safe way to somehow rig it that it automatically
Yeah,
goes
why,
off?
couldn't,
or
instead of them
why-
being
why
manual
do you not
switches,
have the
couldn't they be
timer
timer
switch?
switches? So that
Yeah.
you have a backup in case there's different quality clock systems.
Yeah.
We do a lot of public school work, and they have these issues with power outages, and neighbors will not put up with a school illuminated, after hours. So I would recommend, and this, we can talk about this as a commission, but a better timing system, and then instead of having those individual switches, have timers, so that if they do that, they won't come on at
If
6
someone
a.m.
shows up at 6 AM to play and turns them on, is there a
They-
difference?
At least there's someone playing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they don't just automatically go on.
Yeah,
turn
that-
it on.
right, right.
Yeah.
It would definitely reduce the amount of them just being
Alright.
on, yeah.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
like a cross the
Steve.
street button when you come into the park.
And one thing I wanted to ask on parking on Madison. I mean, I remember on the street I lived on, we were over by Pierce Park, and the neighbors got together, and there's some kind of procedure to request no parking on a certain side of a street. Is that something that could be done by Salt Creek Club?
No.
And have permanent, and have it restricted?
It's
If
gotta
you please
be,
come up,
You mind going to the microphone?
yeah, sorry.
that's gotta be done by the village. It's not gonna be stops.
Right, exactly, it's done by the village, but there's a process, like, we recently went
So
and
I-
petitioned the village, and then the village, there needs to be a certain number of neighbors to support it, and then it gets approved.
So I live in a neighborhood, and I've lived here since 1997. On the east side of Madison, there's no parking. So on the west side of Madison is
Okay.
where people park.
So there's no parking signs on the east side, but not on
Correct.
the west, okay.
Correct. So when they do park, when there is an event, they do bring out horses and caution tape to block off cars from doing that. And, we've told members time after time, you're gonna get a ticket if you park on the sidewalk. And,
Have you ever considered overflow parking nearby at a
I was gonna
location
say
like
that.
Bronzewood or?
They instituted base life principles?
for swim meets, we've tried that. We've tried to go to the old Amlings location, but, for swim meets, but then that requires us to get a bus and a bus system to bus people over, because you can't have little kids walking across the street. This is swim meets for 13 years and younger. So,
I had the same question, and Bronzewood is just down the street, and Bronzewood closes their gates at dusk.
right. I mean,
even
we could take the
before,
gates
and-
off. The gates aren't just there because they used to be closed, because we were a swim season only,
Right.
summer season, but now we're year-round. So what happens is at nighttime, when the paddle players are playing up in Lake Forest and the northern suburbs, they typically get back around midnight. They come into the parking lot because they all carpool, and they wouldn't be able to get to their cars, so.
Yeah, no, I meant in terms of, like
Remote parking.
Julie was saying, Bronzewood has an open, it's where their greenhouse is and their offices. They have a big parking area there. Could you not reach an agreement with them when you do have your swim meets, that possibly you could utilize their space?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that, or, typically they just park on one side of the street and they take all
that standards are not being met. Detrimental to the use and enjoyment of surrounding property, undue traffic congestion or hazards, the screening of the site, you know, maybe each one's a little thing, but they all add up. What I would like to see is for you to come up with a better plan, perhaps.
Yes, it does, because your original comment was the sports court are underutilized and you're trying to get more usage, better usage of this.
Better usage.
Yeah, which is more people.
But
Which is more people, and you talk about interclub play as well,
And
which
this
brings
is
people.
part of the
non-members.
application you
Right.
did, the site plan review. And I'm not against this, I think it's a great thing, but I really think you need to meet with the neighbors or possibly.
We tried to do that. We tried.
Okay, come up with a better set of plans as you move forward. We're gonna do this, this, and this, and then come back to us, like in a month. How many votes does it take for this to move forward tonight? Five?
We would need 5 affirmative votes for this to be a recommendation for approval to the board.
Yes, it still goes to
Be
the
a
board,
negative
but then there's the 2-year rule too. So I'm just trying to give you your options. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
we tried to
it's a
meet with the
great thing.
neighbors. We put it out to the neighbors. You have the list and the dates.
Yes.
They were always a no-show, and this gentleman was a no-show. I was there 3 times. And
Was that the email that was from a year ago, Bob?
yeah, yeah. Well, that's when we
That's
started.
not right. You need to be more current.
That's when we started doing all of our.
Right, I mean, they probably all thought it was a no-go after a year, you know what I mean? It's,
If we withdraw, we're not going to, but if we withdrew this thing, every complaint he has is still his complaint.
I'm not asking you to withdraw, I'm asking
No,
you
but
to.
I'm just trying to tell you, there's nothing, when you go down into this water table, because Rob understands, we had to have engineers out there. We can't even throw.
Right, and I
stuff
understand
out.
that. My concern are the neighbors' complaints. And I just think, you know, you guys came up with some great ideas tonight. Put those in writing or come back next month.
He's willing to put timers out. We want to let them say that.
Yeah, okay, so,
We could show the staff the timers. They can verify the timers, that there are timers there. They're in the lock
No, but we.
basement.
But on individual courts.
Well, so here's the issue with that. You turn on the timer, like a standard click, click, click. You're playing paddle, and next thing you know, it goes off while you're playing.
You're
I mean,
playing
they-
the point over again. I've done it a million times.
No, I know. And,
I'm just saying,
we have that for the heaters. We have a timer for
Right.
the heaters. They just have a switch. It
I think
goes
it'd be an
off.
inconvenience that'd be worth doing for the
Yeah.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Steve, the question I was gonna ask is the lighting system that you're installing for the new courts and the light dispersion on those courts different than the existing courts?
No. They're lower wattage because they're allowed to be more, they work better.
But the shielding and the
Same.
lighting,
The shielding will.
the lighting,
reduce it.
the lighting,
Is that the way the light comes through the building?
the lighting plan that you gave us and the lighting dispersion plan that the people attested to, is that including just the new courts, or is that including all the courts, and would that rate the whole property?
It's the new course.
Just the new courts.
Okay.
Those were already done for the old course.
But
The-
no-
But not now. Like, maybe what we need to do is have that done now on the old courts as well, so that the lighting system is consistent, and that it takes the shading, the newer shading that's now in place into consideration, so that we can mitigate some of these points.
And they would be 150 watt versus, or
Yes.
lumen fixtures versus
Yes.
200.
Well, we went from 450 metal halide to 200 watt LEDs. So that
Right.
reduced it.
It costs,
Originally, it costed $32,000.
Yeah.
I mean, to make.
So right now you have 200 watt
Yeah.
LEDs.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Yeah,
the light, yeah.
so all I'm saying is, I'm not saying get new lights, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, can they be shaded better so that the light dispersion plan that we see on the new courts is done for the whole thing, and we understand what that's gonna be?
Can you clarify for the record if the existing courts, the lights are shielded?
They're not.
They're not.
They're
Now,
not.
I asked that question earlier. confusion.
We basically continue for a month and, I mean, because I think, you know, that it's like shielding those existing, because obviously, lights he's seeing are your existing ones, not the ones you're proposing. So if you're able to make an effort, and even if you were able to install them, so that we could see, you know, they'd be able to see the effect, although I'm sure that they're more screened with, you know, landscaping and stuff this time of year.
A couple of years ago, we tried shields on, it doesn't, it affects the
I
corners.
think it's worth trying to appease the neighbors. I mean, shielding's become a big issue with all lighting now.
Yes.
They come in front of us, whether it's a gas station or whatever, because LED is such more penetrating light than the old types of lights. So I think it would be a step in the right direction. When I look at all the different comments here, lighting is probably the number one complaint, and then second would be noise.
Noise.
Noise is not really something that's our purview, but lighting, it certainly is.
That's why we're putting shields on the
Right.
new lights, because the old courts and the old lights were approved. And the new courts, we are putting shields on, because I talked to Julie about this, and she mentioned that to put the shields on would benefit.
But I think we've done.
And so we'll have 2 courts with the shields on, to,
Oh, just one comment. I thought when we, like, Union Church, because that was
Yes.
a combination of new lights and existing, I thought we requested shields on the existing lights because of the complaints of those neighbors.
You
They
did.
weren't complaining about the new ones that we were addressing, but
Exactly
those
right.
existing ones.
The
I think
complaints
this-
that we're
I think it
hearing
helped.
tonight are on the old lights that exist that are unshielded.
Right.
I appreciate the shielding on the new, I really do, you
Right.
guys. Like I said at the beginning of this whole thing, I'm good on this, but there's part of
So if-
being in a community and
Right.
doing what you can to help mitigate some of these things, and I think that's what we're all kind of
right,
aiming at.
I
no,
agree with
I agree,
Scott.
I
That's
agree.
why
So
we're-
so if we go ahead and do the shields, is it still, do we have to, I mean, at what point do we,
I mean, that's all, those are the only, those are the solutions we have at hand.
Right.
And
No,
when
I
we've
know.
done them, they have helped.
The
I mean,
shields and the
Union Church
timers
was
are
a
really
unique
kind of
situation, because it was similar where the church property is up higher than the adjacent homes, and that was the issue they were having,
Right.
is the site of the fixture, and the shielding helped, especially the houses I thought was on the east side were the ones that were.
And
Sure.
it made a big difference. And now any kind of new lighting plan that comes to plan commission, we seem to request shields.
All
for.
fixtures
So
now.
it's
Right.
not just Salt Creek, it's,
And to address even Mark's point, even if there's additional usage of the courts, the problem with street parking and overflow parking happens during special events, not necessarily during normal utilization of the courts, right?
right, no, I
There's
mean,
2 seasons. There's
Yeah.
winter paddle season, we never have more than 25 cars in parking lots. Like this.
2 seasons.
Top 30, yeah. And that's, you're talking September through April. It's
No,
May, June, July.
Yeah,
And
swim meets and-
my point, and I know there's stuff that's in our purview and what's not, but there's obviously existing issues. I don't want to approve a use right now that exacerbates any of those existing issues. We don't always have people commenting like we have commenting here.
Correct.
But I understand, you can tell me what's germane and what's not germane to this issue, and I appreciate that. But this is a new use intended to get more usage of these courts than what, my questions were leading at the beginning. And so,
It's in the winter. There's never more than 25
I-
cars in the winter. No one plays paddle in summer.
I know, but it's increased, to Scott's point.
Well, that's parking,
Yeah.
but lights,
Yeah,
it's a whole
that-
different
to Scott's
ballgame.
point,
Lights in the
we're-
winter is a bigger problem.
That leads us back to lights.
It's a bigger
It's a
problem.
bigger problem.
But LED lights are sharp and penetrating, like
Right.
Steve said, and so I think it needs to be looked at in totality.
Well, I think we have like your 2 options. Either we could make a motion with conditions, or we could
yeah, I mean,
continue
we
it,
have no problem.
or we
That-
continue it and ask you to come
We have
back.
no problem since we've already ordered, since we will order the new lights with the shields, we'll order the shields for those
Right.
lights and have them installed at the same time.
just so you know, I will be a no vote on that. I'd like to see them come back.
I will be as well.
I would as well.
Versus
Yes.
I want to see.
Steve, I want to see the lighting thing. I want to see the lighting, just, I want to see the map with the shields that
on the
they're-
existing fixtures?
Yep,
In totality.
in totality.
Are they the same type of fixture? Is it the same brand?
Well, is this, so that, may I? You guys, you're presenting and proposing something to us, and we want to make the village, the neighborhood better, or not worse.
Correct.
when a conscientious group comes to us with legitimate objections and discussion, can we say, we like this part, but this other thing? I mean, this is my question.
But you can't take it apart, the application.
Can we say,
We've done conditions in the past, or when we've
but
had
this
issues
is
like this.
unrelated to their request, right?
Or we've asked the applicant, for their benefit, if they want to continue it, because then they can modify their application, come back a month later. Just like the village, District 181's coming back on signs and lights, you know, for the middle school. I think it's, you know, we usually, I would like the applicant to decide, you know, you could call and you want us to vote, we can vote, or a continuation could be in your best interest.
Right, we have the engineers tell you what the light kilowatts
Right.
gonna be with those shields on it.
And if that's the case, I would just want us,
It's only
yeah,
on and tested, we all know that they take what the shield does and then
right.
infer whether it's.
Right.
Model it.
Well, let me just, need to wrap this up. So the things that I was noting that came up, so existing lights, they're looking for shields on them. When it comes to the switches, you know, to deal with this issue where, because of power outages or time change or whatever, to have timers versus manual switches on the courts, in addition to your time clock. And then basically requesting you to investigate for these events, you know, which we're talking the 2 swim meets, and then was it a large tennis event? What was the other?
It's a large tennis event.
Tennis event, is working with either Bronzewood or Institute basically principals and looking for their other options to try to eliminate the parking issues in the street during those big events. Were there any other big items?
No,
And Steve, I think just going back to the lighting timer thing, I think what we're trying to mitigate is both the evening and also the morning
Right.
rollover into the morning.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that was
Yeah,
on the table.
right, because then it's kind of belt and suspenders, but
Yes,
hopefully if there's
but it's,
power.
I'm
just
going to his 8 hours of sleep
Yeah.
thing.
I just had one question. In the 2008 approval, were there any constraints or requirements for operating hours or anything like that?
No, we weren't able to find anything in
Okay.
any of the ordinances about prior operating hours.
Okay, thank you.
And it's landscaping noise?
That's
That's
not us,
unrelated.
that's the
Okay.
village. If they could call about my neighborhood too, that'd be good.
Billy Gates put on the record, he's gonna go back.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
yes.
I'm just trying to think so you can get this all wrapped up next month.
Before
Yeah.
that time, I don't know if
It's those leaf throwers, snow
Oh.
mowers.
I wish Illinois would ban leaf blowers.
Electric.
So would you be in favor of continuance?
Correct.
Okay. And would that be acceptable to you? They basically, those are the issues we want them to investigate and work on and come back in a month, whatever, but they don't want to reapply.
I'm fine, they can solve the problem of the light, I appreciate it, and I really appreciate it and have faith in you guys. One thing I have asked them, what's the big deal if they close the gate? What's the big deal?
That's not our jurisdiction.
We don't have
But
this.
they're applying for something and they leave it 24/7.
I
So I want to ask Mr. Robert, what I have to do, call the police station about that? They have to close the gate for the business or leave it open?
I don't,
They're not obligated?
Yeah.
yeah.
They can leave it the door
Fuller's
open for the
Hardware
business
Store
and they
doesn't
can
close their
walk in.
parking lot either.
right.
It's not something that we
It's not a
review.
parking lot, they have gated for it.
It's not our
They have gate for the parking lot. It's not a parking lot like your parking lot in the city.
It's not something we review.
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine, I check with the
Okay.
attorney. Thank you.
Okay, but thank you. Appreciate your
Just
input.
ask, is it worth checking to see sound deadening came up? And I don't know if there's anything that can be done. You know, if that's a landscaping issue, which has nothing to do with what we're doing tonight,
That
but
doesn't seem to be.
that doesn't seem to be an issue. Or is that an option?
Yeah,
It's the parties.
yeah,
It's the big ones, okay.
right, and we don't have a sign, that's not an
Right.
ordinance that we.
Okay.
So, with that said,
Important if you're a neighbor.
do I have a motion to continue this to our next meeting, which is July something or other?
July 12th.
July 12th?
So moved, Willoughby.
Do I have a second?
Second and more.
Roll call vote, please, Bethany?
Commissioner Curry,
Aye.
Commissioner Kurlenberger,
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich,
Aye.
Commissioner Willoughby,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore,
Aye.
Chairman Cashman.
Aye. Thank you, appreciate your patience.
Thank
you.
Amending the actual petition, we'll submit documentation.
exactly.
of What we're gonna be
Right, if you work with Bethany,
adding to
basically,
the, to the existing
correct.
request.
That'd be fantastic.
Thank
Yeah,
you
You're
also
not
for
starting
the-
over, but.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction on the lights that don't have the shields, by
Yes.
the way.
Yes,
That's
because I
appreciated.
asked them to put shields up.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks, Peter.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, thanks. Okay, where did my agenda go? Our next item are sign permit reviews, and we have case A-15-2023 Sign permit review for 100 South Garfield Street, Hinsdale Middle School. Installation of 1 ground sign and 6 wall signs and 2 flagpoles.
See if I can figure out the password here.
Thanks, everybody. That was an interesting one.
It's a secret word. It's written right on the computer. So thank you all very much for allowing us to come back and to present. There we go. But I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank you last time we were here for your comments. Carrie Leonard, owner's representative for District 181. Mike Dugan, Director of Facilities for 181, is also again with us, here with us tonight.
Welcome.
You know, we took into account all the comments that were made. We consulted with the school district's architect of record, and we also consulted with the architect for the middle school. And so we kind of went over the comments with them and responded to them with a submission. I thought it might be good just to quickly run through the changes that have been made and then be able to answer any questions you may have. So there was a great deal of discussion about the Hinsdale Middle School sign that was located very high on the Garfield Street side. That sign we are proposing to relocate, take it down from that height, put it in a code-compliant height position on the gymnasium, the west side of the gymnasium, by the other entry ramp to the parking deck. So that then gives us a recognition right by that entry. So again, helping to guide people into the parking deck there. Because that is gone, the blue ribbon emblem, we'd still like to keep it up high so it provides that combination of areas with the flagpole, the monument sign, and then the blue ribbon emblem. And that gets dropped a couple of feet, 2 feet 8 inches. Because that's smaller than the long Hinsdale Middle School, it's able to take the 24 foot of lighting and reduce that to 8 feet of lighting. And it is all code compliant, and then we would, as far as light levels, and then we will also, when that gets done, make sure all the timers on those lights are working. And understand that's comments to work with that. And I believe those requirements are for lighting that's across from residential. We're not across from residential, but we will comply with those requirements for across from residential. The item 4 is the lighting operation clarification, and that has to do with the lighting that we had on the flagpole. And then there were other items that came up in discussion responding to the flagpole noise and to the lighting controls on the building itself, the inside lighting on the building. So on the flagpole, there had been some sound dampening devices that had been installed on that originally. There were additional ones that were, after the first complaints in 2019, were added. We haven't been able to confirm anything yet, but we're going to check back with the manufacturer, and if the manufacturer has any recommended sound dampening pieces that fit on that, we're going to get them. But we want to jury rig something. We want to buy something that's manufactured specifically for that pole. And the same thing will apply to the new pole that's going to be put up on the Garfield Street side. Already, I believe I know Mike has contacted and been in touch with a couple of different contractor vendors. And we have consultants that are coming in to try to take a look at the interior lighting and the operation of the interior lighting, and any kind of reasonable changes that can be made will be made. It is, a controlled lighting system is required by code. It has, the motion sensor turning on and off, but there have been some operational issues with those, so we want to clear those up, and hopefully that, we don't know what the results are, but we're going to study it, and hopefully we can implement some things that reduce the time the lights are on for the neighbors. So this was the original application. You can see the blue ribbon emblem and the pin letter sign and the 24-foot light bar all designated there. This is where that relocated sign 5 is going to go. As I mentioned, it's below the 20-foot limit. And it faces the Washington Street parking lot there on the left side of the gymnasium. This shows it in a little bit more context. And then this is the Garfield Street entry with the Hinsdale Middle School pin lettering gone from up high. And so, we think the monument sign, the pole, and the Blue Ribbon Emblem together, work together to do this. And this does reduce, there's no lettering signage that's up high. Everything is code compliant on the lettering signage. Under the ordinance, the Blue Ribbon Emblem is considered a sign. But I think it is kind of unique, and we went through a lot of that last time. It's very different than a typical building signage. So there's the entry. As I mentioned, the only element that's above the 20-foot is that Blue Ribbon Emblem. And the variation changes, I know that's not for you, but we've reduced the mounting height of the Blue Ribbon Emblem, so that'll go as a slight reduction in the variation change, and it eliminates the height variation for the lettering signage. So all the 6 signs instead of the 2, the square footage of signage, but we went through all that. I don't think there were any issues with those in the previous discussion, but hopefully the approval tonight, then we will be able to then proceed into submitting to the variance, and your approval, as we've discussed before, would be contingent upon the variation being applied, being granted. So
Okay.
hopefully,
Thanks, Kerry.
this addresses those concerns, and if there's any questions, Mike or I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, excellent. We'll do questions, and then I see we have a community member here, so we'll see if you'd like to have any comments. So, first, Cynthia, questions, comments?
A couple of things. The flag, I would ask in the meantime, could that not be then lowered at dusk until you come up with a solution to make it less noisy for residents? And one of the, Commissioner Cernovich said the Boy Scouts to lower them. I said, who would do it? We were talking about it. I just think that would be nice to do for the residents until you come up with a solution, if you've not yet been able to find one.
The existing one on the south?
Yeah, that one, and the residents probably aren't gonna like this. I am not fond of the flagpole here. I wasn't at the first meeting, and I've looked at some public buildings as well as, public building schools. And had you ever thought about, I know it's a little confusing because the north side is actually the entrance to the building. However, to me, the south side reads like the entrance. And you've got the sculpture and you have the one flagpole. Had you ever thought about putting a second flagpole and possibly flying state of Illinois? Or is there an HMS flag?
Yeah.
It just seems like it would look balanced. I just don't like it this close to the street, and it seems like a lot of stuff.
So the flagpole is compliant. We're in that location.
Right.
And the second flagpole, as I understand, was actually requested by the village during the zoning process for the building originally, and this is from conversations with the original building architect, that they had only shown the flagpole on the north side of on the south side of the building, and it was requested that because that was the main entry, there be a flagpole there on the south side. So the village was supposed to install that when they built the parking deck.
On the north side.
On the
additional
north
one
side, they were
north.
supposed to install it. That was part of the intergovernmental agreement.
Right.
So it could not be installed there because the cost to the village to install it there, because it would have been basically on the second floor. They would have had to build a foundation down through the lower level of the parking deck. So this location was actually in discussions, with the village at that time, was determined to be a good alternative location so that the village didn't have to do it on the parking deck and incur those costs.
Was it by that main entry, the north entry?
Yeah, that's where it was originally planned, yes, because the school district bought the 2 flagpoles. The village, as part of the intergovernmental agreement, was going to install the second flagpole. So there's a flagpole sitting, this flagpole's actually sitting in the school.
I get that. And it's that heavy that it cannot be installed on the north side.
That was
There's
the village's
nowhere.
engineers, yeah.
Nowhere.
The wind
Okay.
loads are,
It's, yes, it
Because
was,
the north side of the building, quite honestly, does not look like the front of the building to me.
mhm.
There's nothing about it. In fact, I know the signage that's above the doors there is non-illuminated. I almost would say I'd like to see it illuminated because it would then read like it's the front of the building. And there's nowhere to put the flag. It just seems like a lot of stuff on this. It's such a large campus. And you have the one flagpole on the south side, and then you have all of this here, and then, the signage around the building. It's just my personal opinion, so there's no other option. And that can't even be moved to the other side, to the Washington Street side.
No, and I think that might add a little more confusion. The flagpole typically is, we talked about
At
the
the-
sign and signals, they kind of work together.
Yeah, okay.
And the flagpole really says front door.
Even though it's like side door. Is there anything you can do to make the north side appear more like the entrance to the school? Is anybody confused by the building?
Sure, yeah, like,
It's already really confusing for the secretaries because they're on the
But it's not on there.
north side of the building. The main
Right.
office is on the north side of the building.
Right.
So to make the south side look more like the main entrance would even be more
I think
the
Cynthia was saying to
black
make the north
agree.
side,
Yeah.
you wanted the north side to look more like the entrance.
I want the north side to look more like the entrance. I don't know how you do it, but I was suggesting that I'm not crazy about where it is because it's so close to the street and you really drive by and it's, so I thought if you put it at the south side, yes, I agree, the south would then become more looking like.
It is a good
the front of the
location
building.
for the parade.
I
Well,
have, excuse me, but Cynthia, I have the original plans here, and that is where the flag is on the north side of the building, and it's not on the parking deck.
That's
the
why I know
parking
there's,
deck.
there's planters,
But
there's
it's
very
like-
heavy
it's-
things
No,
on the
that-
north side.
This rendering, that was all gonna be
Drive by to look,
landscaping
there must be
Okay.
somebody
on
to
top of the parking garage. It was extremely expensive. So that landscaping turned into pavement with planters, right? There's planters
So there's
inside.
no
There's
grass
large
out there
planters.
anymore? Okay.
No,
There-
no.
Okay.
It's-
Well,
The parking
there-
garage goes right up to the building because there's actually
Okay.
connections on the lower level.
Okay.
It was a lot of, and the parking deck cost a lot more than was intended for the village.
Yes,
So it was,
yes. Okay.
it was hard, that's what they wanted and it was just
So
too
that
expensive.
was the original, okay.
Yeah. Because then it was really that's the main entrance. It would-
Because after our last meeting, I went back and I looked at the packets.
Yeah. Yeah, that
No,
was the
the-
plan.
Okay, thank you.
As I say, it was written to be there at the north entrance. Everybody agreed that that's where
Okay.
it should be. And, it just, we could have gone back to the village and said, spend the extra money and put it there. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
no,
think
we-
that was,
no, we
at
like
that
the
point, we were
landscaping.
trying to be
It was
pretty
super-
accommodating
Okay.
Yeah.
with working together because there, as you can recall, there was a little bit of discussion back and forth on the parking deck.
Right. a lot.
More than a little, I think.
Anything else, Cynthia?
I'm sorry, Cynthia.
No, I
Okay.
was just, again, I wish there was something, because even the parking deck, there's no planters in it. It really reads as kind of the back of the building, quite honestly.
Yeah, but the parking deck was not our project. It was built
Right.
by the
Right.
village.
And then I know you're moving, is it signage 5?
Yes.
To the gymnasium building, and I know you're over, seems like an awful lot of signage. You see Hinsdale Middle School above the door. I mean, maybe you want to use it, but this sign's going to be moved to the gymnasium building, correct?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, is that necessary?
Well, I think that the letters already exist, we have the letters now, and the attempt here is that to mark this second entry to the parking deck. So that, again, the whole goal is that as people are driving around who are coming to the school as visitors, are not familiar with it, to get them up on the parking deck. If we get them up on the parking deck, then they can see the Hinsdale Middle School sign over the door, and they can get in the door. That's the secure entrance to the building. That's where they have to check in.
Okay.
So there were, we're already at the 6 signs, this being being not sign number 5, but the 6th sign. And rather than, throw out the letters, we thought this was the best place in the building to use it to add to that whole plan that we have of how do you get people to that door.
Okay, so that grassy area, that flagpole can't go there at the corner of the building. I don't know if you like it there, but,
Yeah, again, we talked about, nobody's coming to the Washington Street. If you're following Google, you're trying to get to the building.
Right.
You're not coming to the Washington Street parking lot. You're coming to 3rd Street or you're coming to Garfield. So that's why the monument sign we want there, that's why the blue ribbon, that's why the flag, they just kind of all act
Okay.
together. And if you start to split them apart, we already split off the Hinsdale Middle School sign. I think this is a good alternative for it because of what it does as far as marking the second entrance. But if you put one of those other pieces somewhere else, I think it makes a little bit more confusion
Okay.
to the visitors, which is our real goal, is to get people to that door.
okay.
Can I just make a comment on that, go out of order if I may? Just because we're on that, is it okay, Jim, may I?
On the number or what's the count?
On this particular item that's up right now, this view that we're looking at is from Washington Street, correct?
Yeah, north of the building.
Yes.
I think, the sign, exact same sign, but would it not be better pulled all the way to the west so that if you're on Washington Street, you would see it and then turn into that alley? or into that parking
Yeah,
lot there?
you know, you see it when you're coming on Washington Street.
Because that's going to be tucked back.
Yes, it is tucked back because it's to get people to turn up and into the
Around the
parking deck
corner.
as opposed to continuing straight on and recirculating back to Garfield. So, you know, we did talk, there was a good deal of discussion about should it be
Yeah.
on the right, should it be on the
Right.
left, should it be centered?
Yeah, right.
And I think that marking it on the left really, I think sends the
It
best
pulls.
message to people driving by.
It's pulling people in.
It doesn't imply there's something around that corner.
Yeah, right. Okay. Thank you. That's it. That's all I
Yeah.
have. Thanks, Jim.
I'm good.
Jim?
Thank you.
It's Flag Day.
Yes.
I think this is a lovely flag with all due respect.
Okay.
And I just,
Here?
yeah, actually,
get it. I
I
get it.
kind of buy the idea that it, you know, all
I like
the,
the parade concept.
all this,
That's where
absolutely.
top of the hills where I always
There you
sit.
go.
Yeah, I think in honor of Parade Day, we should suggest 40 other flags.
Flags.
Yeah. No, I'm in support of this. I'm glad that you moved the sign down. And although your observation has merit, Mr. Moore, I think that view is well considered.
Thanks, Jim. Julie?
I appreciate the changes you have made. I think that this is a better plan, and I appreciate that you are coming back and willing to get the other signs through zoning and in compliance. Because like I mentioned, I had, I had some concerns about the Garfield sign a few years ago. But as this application is moving forward to the ZBA and the Board of Trustees, there's a couple of items that I would like to clarify. They were mentioned at the last meeting, just so everybody's on the same page. And like I said, as it's moving forward. And the first one was that there were some discussions about special standards that school districts do not have to follow local zoning.
Okay.
And so I did look that up in the ILCS, and I see that changes were made, and that was in the fall of 2016, and school districts must now comply with local zoning, but I understand your plans were in the works then, so it was kind of a transitional time. But just as we move forward, I wanted to point that out. And also the illumination of signs. I know you're gonna have the lights off between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. It doesn't matter if there's a residence across the street. What matters if the zoning lot that the sign sits on, if that is across from residential. So actually you do have to comply with that. And the third thing that I looked up, because I think you had mentioned that.
About the hours.
Well,
Hours of operation.
about the
Of
hours.
Of illumination.
Right, and then the third thing too, when you were in front of, when 181 was in front of Plan Commission in 2017, they were asked about signage and they said they would come back, and that never happened. But I think you made the comment that signage did appear on those renderings back then, and so I looked at the renderings, and they did, but there was no signage. No signage appeared on the renderings for the east side of the building, the Garfield side, and because that would have caught our eye way back then. So I'm glad you're going through the right channels and
Yes.
doing the right thing. And I appreciate too that you're working with the neighbors, trying to do something about the flagpole. And I live about a block away, and I've always heard that clanging, and I never knew what it was. And now I know. So it is, you'd wake up in the middle of the night and be like, what is that noise? I think it would be a neighborly thing to do until you find a solution so there's no clanging, if the flags could possibly be, taken down at dusk. And hopefully, you'll find a solution for the interior lights, because, let's face it, we all want to go green. That's just such a waste of energy, and it's just so stark at night. I'm sure you've seen it at night, and it's so out of place. I don't know how, well, I guess we really don't have any authority over the interior of buildings, but it was such a mistake, and I'm really hoping that you can find a solution for that. But I appreciate you being here and the changes you've made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
It's
Joe.
always hard to follow you.
And everyone else like it too? Okay.
Exactly. No, I appreciate all the changes you did make, and I think overall that I am in agreement with the changes.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Scott?
I echo the last two comments. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, I really, I like the changes. I mean, I do think it's a unique property. You have so many frontages. It's not a typical building. I deal with schools a lot, signage, getting people, especially visitors, where's the gym, getting new parents, having signage is important. I like this, the monument, more of an entrance off of Garfield. Hopefully that will help. I think it's well done. And I do recall the whole thing about the plant landscaping. I mean, I remember how much the architect and the village, and we all wanted landscaping on our side, but the cost of doing those planters, the garage was expensive enough just the way it is today. But to put planters along it, it would have been really
I
something.
have never been in the parking deck, but I live
You
so.
got- you got it. It's fantastic.
I live so
The night is
close.
young,
I don't have
Julie.
any money.
The night is young.
There's probably spaces available right now.
Road trip right now.
It's on the way.
We can make that happen.
Well, thank, sir, would you like to speak tonight? Yes.
Very quickly.
Yes, please, if you come to the microphone, just say your name, please.
Jim
I know you-
Knowles.
You live right across the street, right?
Right. So the only thing, and we talked about shields a lot tonight, I don't see any shielding on the cut sheet for the monument sign here. I don't know if that's an omission or not, but since it's not here, I'm assuming they're not planning on that, so.
Carrie, could you comment on that, or Mike?
The monument sign is lit from the bottom going up. It's very small throw, and it's directed right at the sign itself. Typically, the shielding is what you're using on wall-mounted signs on the building that are up higher, so that you're cutting it off from anyone across the street. So there is really kind of no shielding for those ground-mounted signs, but they are, concentrated on the smaller area. So it's not something that's going to create the kind of situation that was being discussed in the earlier presentation.
I tend to disagree with that. When somebody would be walking past, again, back to the LED driver thing, you shouldn't be able to see the LED drivers, and that's what the shielding is about. You still get to light up the sign, but it needs to be just as the Union Church did, and they did an admirable job.
They did.
They
I was
really
going to
did.
ask if it's comparable between the two, so.
I mean, LED drivers, depending on the angles, you're going to see them, and they're going to be very annoying.
Is that something, Mike, that you guys could investigate to see if there's shielding options for those ground signs?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, good comment.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
I should ask my engineers when we
And
put
thank you
those
for
in.
staying so late here. That's-
Any other questions or comments by commissioners? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve case A-15-2023, sign permit review for 100 South Garfield Street, Hinsdale Middle School, installation of 1 ground sign, 6 wall signs, and 2 flagpoles?
Brillenberger.
Well, one thing I just wanted to ask is, did we want to qualify that to request and investigate possibly having Boy Scouts or students lower the flags at dusk
Yes,
until the
please.
sound can be mitigated?
Yeah, like
And
a club
shield-
or
Or-
something.
or the-
Daylight shields.
And the shields on the ground.
Or the maintenance guys.
The last custodian.
Right, yeah. Or you're fired.
Does that sound acceptable to the group?
Absolutely, that's a great idea.
And-
Good addition.
Yes,
And-
with the
and
conditions.
was Bethany able to follow those 2 conditions?
Yes,
Okay.
thank God we record this.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Krillenberger, so motions.
Do we have a second?
Curry, second.
Bethany, roll call, please. Vote.
Commissioner Curry?
Aye.
Commissioner Krillenberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Cernovich?
Aye.
Commissioner Willoughby?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Chairman Cashman?
Aye. Great. Congratulations, good luck. Good luck with
Nicely done.
ZBA.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, Mike.
Steve,
Move to
I
adjourn.
have a question.
Oh, yes,
I have
do I
a
have a
question.
motion to
Oh,
adjourn?
Krillenberger, so
Is
motions.
this a business, a zoning issue?
This is
All in
zoning issue.
favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Fine,
Wait,
All
Commissioner.
opposed?
Was
Hold on.
our
Oh,
plan commission, our recommendation for the patio, was that passed on to the trustees?
Yes,
It was, correct.
that what?
yeah,
What's the
the
question?
findings and recommendations, You guys commented, I know
Yep.
Bethany made some changes.
We got
I had
the
one,
email.
I had one change from a commissioner that was amended. However, at the last board meeting, at the last minute, they pulled it off and made it a discussion item. So it will be coming back, but I know they're going back to see what kind of donations the village is gonna be able to receive, and then determine what's the adequate amount of financing for a project like this.
Oh, and
It's
it'll
coming
come back
to
here?
us or coming back to the board?
It will come back to the board. If there's substantial changes, it may come back to the HPC and village.
This is like Millennium Park.
Yeah.
This will be done
But
10
either
years
way,
after the
I
Millennium.
promised that I would send you guys the final plans. I just don't know when that will be or what those will
No,
look
I
like.
get there were a lot of
So we'll be
moving
sure to
parts
keep you
there.
in the loop.
Well, I watched the Board of Trustees meeting last night, and the rendering that they were showing looked different.
They did make some changes
didn't
based
mean
on
to
your
shortchange it
feedback
all
for that, what was going to be brought to the board.
Okay, but what
Yeah.
I saw was like the whole
No,
middle
I
was
can see
more
that.
chairs and
The,
tables, when I thought we had recommended flowers in the middle.
I think they're
No,
still
it was a
working
mixed
on
flow.
those plans. You probably also noticed there was some designs for, like, some discussion here about that curved design.
Yeah, that was Jerry's.
And they've kind of tried to square that off a little bit more then.
Okay.
But then there's been discussion since then of, well, you know, during the memorial processions and Memorial Day processions, there's a lot of ground traffic actually between that front of the patio downward to Chicago Avenue. So
Right.
now they're thinking, is it really appropriate to have all that landscaping around that southern border? So it's still in process is the whole point.
Well, I felt for Michelle representing the trustees that, you know, we're asking for the sky and the moon. She's like, and how are we gonna pay for this thing?
There's a way.
There's a
gotta
way.
be a way.
Well, yeah, I
It's
mean,
so neat.
I'm still amazed how the village paid for this building. Yeah, that was pretty
Well,
impressive.
but they were organized from what I've read. They started like over a year in advance, and they were ready to go. I mean,
Yep. And this does give us an opportunity as well to loop in, you know, some fundraising efforts for the roof railing, which I know there's a lot of people out there that are in
Right.
support of that as well. Bringing back
And the
that historic
bells.
element, and potentially bells and some other improvements, so.
And thank you, Rob, for coming tonight. I know
Yes,
you're
thank
you're
you.
probably in your car leaving when I'm like, hey, could you come to this meeting? But
and then,
thank
you know, community development could move
Are
to
we
the
still on
second
TV?
floor. After all these repairs and everything.
No, we still
are
are.
done.
We haven't adjourned yet.
Yes, we still need to adjourn.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Brillenberger, so motions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, thanks, everybody.
Seconded, just for the record.